Welcome back. We're going to be talking about Conlangs, but you didn't guess that. Um, so like last video, I'll start talking about the homework. Just research scripts that interest you, and choose scripts that interest you, or choose the type of script. So I got a correction as well, and that's romanization only applies when you have a non-Latin script. Otherwise, it's called transliteration. My language last time did present a non-Latin script, but I just thought I'd add that. Thank you to the person who pointed that out to me. So, as I said last time, we will be making scripts this episode, or I will present to you how to make them roughly. So let's go for the first type, and that's logography. As a recap, one symbol is one word or idea, and the most often used in older societies like China or Egypt. Obviously, they've got their hieroglyphics and symbols as examples you will see here. This is partially for hieroglyphics because they were also used as abjads. So let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages. The first advantage is that they're easily translatable between languages, so that no smoking sign there, you'll recognize it whichever language you speak, hopefully, because I mean it's quite obvious, but it is a logograph and it represents the idea of no smoking. There's also limited homophones, which are words that sound or are spelled like each other because the symbols are normally quite different and separated, and you could combine words and symbols to make new ones. There are some disadvantages. First one is that they require lots of symbols to learn, 50,000 in Chinese, that's a lot of symbols, and that symbols can become quite complicated. So how do we create them? Each simple word, you just draw a symbol, and then you simplify it over time, and if more complex words are needed, you just combine symbols, and if nothing combines to make it, you just create a new symbol. As we see here, that's the modern Chinese symbol for tree or wood. There's a more complicated one for ancient Chinese, but they've obviously simplified it over time, and that turns into forest by just adding a second one. So our second type of script is an alphabet, and that's one symbol per phoneme, as you should hopefully remember. Some examples are Latin, Greek, and Cyrillic. Some advantages and disadvantages of using this are that there are not many symbols to learn, and that they can be combined to spell many different words. However, spelling can be inconsistent, as English proves quite easily, and translation is required between different languages. So how to create this? Well, we choose a symbol from a logography that starts with the desired letter, simplify it over generations, and if a letter doesn't exist for the sound, you can reuse an unused letter or change letters to make new ones. Here's an example. As you can see, Alp meant ox in Proto-Sinaitic, and that was an ox head, quite simply. It got simplified into Phoenician and then into Latin. Not all the steps are showed here, so that there are quite a few ones. It's a general overview so that you can understand where they come from. Our next type of script is an Abugida, where each symbol represents a consonant with vowels being modifications, as we can see there as well. Some examples are Devanagari in Indian, the one and that I can't pronounce, and Brahmi. Advantages and disadvantages of Abugidas are that they're quite consistent in their sounds and there's less characters to write per word. However, more symbols are required to learn than alphabets, and it's difficult to create new symbols. So how do we create one of these? Well, they're often evolved from an abjad, which we'll cover next. So you choose an abjad and add modification for vowels. It's quite simple there. And here's a small family tree of different alphabets, and they're examples of how they've evolved into their different letters appropriately. Our next type of script is an abjad, where one symbol per consonant and vowels are inferred, and sometimes vowels are diacritics and they are known as impure abjads. So some examples are ancient Phoenician as a pure abjad, whereas Arabic is an impure abjad due to those diacritics for vowels. Advantages of abjads and disadvantages of abjads are that they are simpler to write and need smaller amounts of symbols per word, but they require extensive knowledge of spelling and words, and loanwords are hard to implement. And in addition to that, the language that you create should probably have a small amount of words that are similar without vowels. So you could do TP for English, but for example, that could be tip, top, tap, and stuff like that. So it's kind of difficult. You can't really create one for English unless you use an impure one. How do you create one anyway? Well, we choose a symbol from a logography that starts with the required letter, simplify it over generations, and if a letter doesn't exist for a sound, we use an unused letter or change letters to make new ones. As you can see, here is the evolution of that letter in Hebrew. So next we're going to talk about syllabaries, where each symbol represents a syllable. For example, katakana, hiragana, both in Japanese, and Cherokee and Yi. That's some interesting ones. Advantages and disadvantages again. Words are easy to write and read because they are a lot shorter, but they require a large amount of symbols, one for each syllable. So it's highly recommended that you have a very simple syllable structure and not a huge amount of sounds. I'm sure you'd be surprised if you looked up the table for katakana and hiragana, they have a lot of symbols. So how to create these? Well, you choose a symbol from logography that starts with the required letter or syllable. Then you take parts of the symbol that represents the sound, if it's compound of course, or just simplify it a lot, as we can see here, as they've done with katakana in Japanese. They've just taken a small part of the symbol and changed it quite a lot over time. And finally we have featural systems, where each symbol represents smaller things, like phonemic information. They are also the most modern of the systems. As we will see here, Hangul was created in 1443, which is quite late for an alphabet. Osage created in 2006, and Shavian in roughly 1960. I'll show you a bit more on that later. Advantages and disadvantages. It requires few parts, so it's easy to learn, and you can create many letters with a few symbols. However, they're quite complicated to understand the inner workings behind the letter, for example. So how to create one of these? Well, choose the information of the letters you want to show, such as voicing or place of articulation. Create parts or criteria for each, and then you make the letters using these sounds. So here you can see Shavian, where you can see that peep and bib, they're two different letters with those names. Peep is the unvoiced version, and bib is the voiced version, or in the top left, I should say. And the unvoiced one is one way, and bib is just rotated 180 degrees, as you can see with the next two and the next two, and it just works like that. It's a great looking alphabet. So this was made to represent each sound in, I believe, an American accent, but I'm not quite sure. I haven't read too much up on it. But you don't have to stick with these. You can make your own ones, such as inverse Abugidas, or inverse Abjads, where you use vowels instead, or whatever. And you don't even have to do that. You could just create your own completely. The final thing we need to talk about is you need to choose a medium and an instrument, which are what you choose to write on and with, and it governs how your script will or might look. And examples of scripts that have come in the past are these ones. I won't completely read it out to you, but there's a table there, and if you're interested in any of these scripts, you've got the name of the script in the third column, and the instrument and medium in the first two, and how it looks and why it looks that way in the final column. Just look up how they look. I'm sure you'll probably recognize most of them, if not all of them, and you'll be able to quite quickly understand why they look that way. And that will quite heavily govern what your script will look like, because you're not going to have quite a flowy script when you're writing with a sword on stone, because that's not going to work. Hello, I bet you can guess why I'm here. It's homework time again. So I want you to decide your writing system, which I think you probably did in the last episode, but I mean, it's good if you've changed your mind on that based on what I've told you. Decide your medium and instrument of writing, and for you to create your script completely. Once you do this, I would love to see it, or if you need any help, just join our Discord. The link will be in below, and I would love to have a look at what you come up with for your language. And yeah, I'm always there to answer questions, and I'm sure many other people are there too. Bye. But how do we create one anyway? We choose a symbol from a